my life flashed before my eyes.
Get out!
It was so frightening.
You are about to see real people
I felt like I was going to die.
reliving horrifying paranormal encounters for the first time.
I knew that I was in danger.
When the voices of the dead haunt the living.
Shut up!
I thought something was trying to kill me.
I buried this for nearly 30 years.
Be prepared to be afraid.
Paranormal Survivor, Dark Shadows, take one. Mark?
We had previously been renting, and I wanted to own something of my own, so we bought this house. I felt like we were starting a new chapter. It was myself, my son Jordan, who was then 12, and my daughter, who was 10. My daughter hated it. The first time I brought her here and pulled into the driveway, she wouldn't even get out of the car. She said that she had a really bad feeling about the house. She didn't like it. She didn't want to go in.
Eventually, Amy was able to persuade Emily inside. Soon after settling in, Amy started to share Emily's apprehension.
I would be standing at the kitchen sink doing dishes or at the stove cooking, and I could feel like somebody was directly behind me. Nobody was there. It felt very negative and intimidating. I would catch something out of the corner of my eye, and when I looked, there would be nothing there. Maybe somebody walking past a doorway is what it appeared to be. And there was never anybody in there. I assumed that I was stressed from moving, trying to start over, and just the stress was getting to me. The noises would happen whenever, wherever, throughout the entire house. Just like the sound of like the door latch jiggling and opening the door. I thought, it's just a new house. Everybody goes through this. Well, they have their adjustment period. I thought everything's gonna be fine, but it wasn't.
The strange activity became impossible to ignore when it started affecting Amy's children.
Hi, Mom. Hi, guys.
The kids had just gotten home. They walked through the front door, through the living room, and when they came in the door, they saw a shadow. I went out to see what was going on. At that time, they let me know that they had seen a shadow.
Well, there's nobody here, guys.
There was?
There was. He was right there.
They described the shadow that they saw as very, very dense, tall, thin, approximately 6 to 7 feet tall. They thought there was an intruder. I was worried about their mental well-being most of all. At this point, nothing physical had happened. I didn't know what to do. I felt defenseless.
A lot of times spirits want to make themselves known because they're trying to show you that they're there. They're trying to get your attention. They're trying to either warn you or trying to communicate with you or trying to make you fearful.
It's fine, okay?
I knew that I had made a big mistake in buying this house.
With nowhere else to go, Amy and her family were helpless as the activity increased.
Jordan was sitting on his bed reading, and he saw the apparition. He saw the apparition of a young boy, what he described, probably 7, 8 years old, just standing there looking at him. The little boy that he saw just seemed very void. And the little boy was gone just as quick as he had appeared.
Emily was having terrifying encounters of her own.
Emily came to me one day and told me that she had woken in the middle of the night and saw the shadow figure standing in her doorway watching her. Just standing and watching. She felt fear. She described it as feeling frozen. She couldn't move. She felt like something bad was going to happen. She described the figure in her doorway as tall, thin, masculine, intimidating. Stood there and watched her for probably about 15 to 20 seconds and then disappeared. I was very stressed out. I didn't know what to do, didn't know where to turn, didn't know what this thing was, what it wanted. I really, really felt defenseless.
Amy's fears would horribly come true.
As I was getting ready for bed that night, I felt like somebody was watching me, following me everywhere I went. Just felt very, very intimidated. I had went to bed anyway, was able to finally fall asleep.
Amy Fight and her 2 children have been plagued by shadowy apparitions in their new home. Then, the activity took a dangerous and violent turn.
And in the middle of the night, I woke up to being held down to the bed and I couldn't breathe. As I was being held down, I had a sense of pure evil in the room. It was cold and very, very frightening. I couldn't breathe. No, I couldn't scream. I couldn't make a noise. Nothing. There was nothing I could see that was doing this to me. There was nobody else in the room. The pain was so intense, I thought something was trying to kill me in my sleep. When it finally let go, I sat up and was able to catch my breath, and that's when I saw it at the end of my bed. There was a figure, most likely the same thing that the kids had seen. It was probably the most feeling of pure evil I've ever experienced. And when I blinked, it was gone.
Evil spirits act aggressively because they are just that, evil. It's the fiber of who they are. They act aggressively because they are trying to control you. They're trying to scare you. They're trying to intimidate you.
At this point, I didn't know what to do. I was just totally terrified. I stayed up the rest of that night, and I couldn't go back to sleep. At that point, I had decided that I couldn't take anymore. Something had to be done.
Desperate and terrified, Amy called in paranormal investigator John Campbell.
Amy seemed scared, distressed, and sounded like she needed help.
I knew that there was probably a risk that bringing in investigators would sort of agitate it, but I felt at that time I was willing to take that risk just to know what we were dealing with. I felt like I had no other option.
My game plan going into this was to first find out, to validate for Amy that they weren't crazy. That's number one on the list. Number two, try to find out who they are and why they're here. And then final, try to get rid of them.
Let's start downstairs.
John decided to begin the investigation in the basement.
John was using a digital recorder to try to get some EVP responses. Mostly John was asking, who's here? What do you want? Why are you here? Is there anything we can do to help you?
Who's here? What do you want? Why are you here? Is there anything we can do to help?
Caught an EVP of a growl or a hiss, which, to be honest, is kind of scary. Anything that's friendly is not going to growl at you or hiss. I believe the growling, the hissing, is the big shadow person that Amy's been seeing in her bedroom. Sounded to me very menacing. I believe was a non-human entity. And that means it could be anything demonic.
John moved the investigation upstairs.
Out of the corner of my eye, I seen an apparition. And I happened to look up, and it was a little boy looking through the banisters. When I saw him, I reacted shocked. I feel like he kind of wanted to be seen, let us know that indeed he is here and was communicating with us.
I'm scared.
I caught the little boy saying he's scared on an EVP. It just sounded like a little boy terrified. I reacted to that EVP pretty shocked and worried for the little boy.
John had a theory that this little boy was possibly looking to me for protection because of the other entity in the house. When John saw the boy at the top of the stairs, part of me felt relieved, just knowing, okay, there's a professional who has gone through numerous investigations. He's seeing the same things that we've seen. He's validating the things that we've experienced. It really, really was a relief.
I'm scared.
John decided to cleanse the house to remove the evil entity.
I smudge the house using sage. I go to every room. I have the sage lit. It is believed that sage will help cleanse and get rid of evil spirits.
He did advise me at this time that it could possibly make the situation worse, but that was again, a risk I felt I was willing to take just because we were so desperate to figure out what was going on and get rid of it.
Spirit of light, protect this home and rid it of evil spirits. Spirit of light, protect this home and rid it of evil spirits. Spirit of light, protect this home and rid it of evil spirits. Spirit of light, protect this home and rid it of evil spirits.
After the smudging, I could not really tell much of a difference. And to me, it felt just as dark, and I believed it did not work. I believe the entity was too strong.
I truly felt that whatever this thing was wanted to be here, wanted to terrorize my family, and it wasn't going to go quietly. I felt hopeless.
When the activity returned, Amy was forced to take drastic action.
The activity in the house got so intense that we ended up leaving the house to go stay at my mom's. I had felt like I never wanted to come back to the house again. I wanted to sell it and just be done with it. The other part of me felt that this is my home. I don't want to let this thing win. I'm concerned that this entity could possibly just be hiding, that it's not fully gone, that at some point it will possibly attack one of us again. A part of me is still scared that it's gonna come back. Sorry.
Some spirits can't let go of the material world. These entities will often demand to be heard and reclaim what they feel is rightfully theirs.
Paranormal Survivor, Victorian Nightmare, take one. Mark.
We moved into the house in November of 2016.
I need you guys to put the pillows over in the couch, okay?
When we walked in this house, we kind of instantly fell in love with the charm and character of it. The house is Victorian. It was fully restored to period. It had a lot of history with it.
I was excited about being here for the first time. It was an amazing, big, new home that we just haven't seen before.
The initial feeling about the house when we bought it was just kind of happiness, happy to have such a great home.
Lee, Jennifer, and their boys loved the space, but it didn't take long for that feeling to change.
You would be woken up by someone saying your name repeatedly.
Lee.
It was a female voice. There was almost something wrong, or that they were trying to get your attention. You would be woken up by a woman crying and looked out in the hallway. There was nothing there. It was completely empty. Just sobbing kind of uncontrollably. And we heard it, and the hair on the back of your neck stood up. It was that sobbing where you could tell that there was a loss. It was uneasy being, the man on the, you want to protect those who live there and your kids and that. And there was just that unknown of, is there someone in the house? Went to check, and there was no one out there. The kids were asleep.
That's Chase.
Lee Bailey had moved his family into what he thought was the perfect home. But soon after moving in, Lee was haunted by a mysterious voice.
That's Chase.
Then, the voice called out the name of Lee's youngest son.
I heard a woman whisper in my ear, "That's Chase." And it stopped me to the point where I had to turn around and see if maybe he was talking to me. It was clear. It wasn't, one of those where you think you hear a whisper. It was very clear that they had said, "That's Chase." When it happened, I was scared.
Sometimes spirits make themselves known because they have something to say, or perhaps they want to make sure that they tell the family members that they're protective, they're aware of the people that are living in that particular place.
We did hear voices. It was pretty much constant. Every night there was noises up there. When you were upstairs, you always felt like there was someone else up there with you. You never really felt alone in the upstairs.
The activity then turned its attention to Lee's son, Bailey.
Bailey, his room is probably the most active.
I started hearing knocking probably within the first week. It sounded more like footsteps, people walking throughout the attic. I felt like I was being watched, but I couldn't see the person. They were out of eye shot. So I felt like someone was sitting in there where I can't see.
So with Bailey, you could tell that there was some unease with him. We had all seen kind of some shadow figures darting back and forth between rooms, and it would always be into his room.
My heart would start racing. It feels like someone is watching me and trying to get to know me without me noticing that they're there.
As the days passed, the activity in the house grew in intensity, and Lee's wife, Jennifer, had a terrifying encounter.
My wife was at home working, and she was down here on a break and heard some movement in the parlor and kind of peeked around.
Hello? Is there someone there?
She saw in the mirror above the fireplace a man standing there. And when she looked away to see if there was someone there again and looked back, it was gone. After that had happened to her, she called me within just a few minutes of it and was, trying to explain it of what she had saw and kind of rationalize, but you could hear the fear in her voice.
I'm so scared! I saw someone!
Later the same day, Lee had a scare of his own.
I was coming in from a run, and I was going upstairs to go ahead and take a shower, and I passed by Jen on the stairway. I walked down the hallway to the bathroom, and she's standing right there.
Okay.
You were just on the stairs. And that's when I stopped in shock and started kind of yelling, "You were just on the stairs. How did you get here?"
In certain instances, spirits are able to manifest as somebody else. It can be considered a doppelganger. In most circumstances, it occurs when they're trying to get your attention or they're trying to trick you.
I saw the spirit walking down the stairs, which I thought was her at the time. That day is when I started looking to see if maybe there was someone that could help us.
Lee called in paranormal expert Carlo Zuzik for help.
Good. When you walk in, it was like walking into history. Everything's like original. It was really neat, but you also had this uneasy feeling like someone was watching you.
So what kinds of things have you been experiencing?
Apparitions.
The biggest red flag going into this investigation were they were actually seeing apparitions. A spirit has to be very strong to manifest. I always feel they have some danger going on because, again, you don't know what you're up against. A spirit could lash out at any time. They still dominate this place. They can get violent. Talking to Lee, he had mentioned that there was a family that used to live here. And there was a gentleman that he was very prominent to the area, a very well-known businessman. Knowing what the history was helped us, with the investigation. Lee had mentioned that a lot of the activity upstairs where the boys' room is, we decided to start the investigation upstairs in that area. We started off doing an EVP session, and we started asking questions. Who are you? What's your name?
What's your name?
Hey!
Homeowner Lee Springer and his family have been tormented by spirits.
That's Chase.
Fearing for their safety, Lee called in paranormal expert Carlo Zuzik.
What's your name?
Hey!
And next thing you know, we hear, "Hey." And we looked at each other, we're like, "Did you say that?" We're like, "No." All the equipment started lighting up, the K2 started lighting up, but then a few minutes later, we heard what sounded like a woman sobbing. When you hear something like that, the hair on your arm stands up. And then all of a sudden you see the shadow run by. We're kind of in shock for a minute, like, we just see that and we ran into the next room and there was nobody in that room. You could feel that energy, the presence of what was actually there running by. We decided to move to the kitchen area to investigate it. What we use sometimes is a flashlight, and we have spirits use that to talk to us in real time. They'll manipulate it and turn it on and off for yes or no.
Are you comfortable with us being here?
And we asked, the spirit, are you comfortable with us being here? Do you not want us to leave? And the flashlight turned on.
Do you just want us to stay up here with you and talk to you because you finally have a voice that you can talk to people and communicate?
It just told us it actually liked us being there.
Can you turn it off?
And we asked her to turn it off, and it turned it back off. So the spirits, I think, didn't find us a threat.
Carlo presented the evidence to Lee and Jennifer.
After hearing what he had to say and hearing the evidence and seeing what they had caught, there was shock and relief. Shock that this is really happening in the house and what we've experienced is true. But then also relief too from, all right, I'm not going crazy and we're not going crazy as a family.
Carlo had some surprising news.
I don't believe anything here was negative. What I believe was behind it was the old family that used to live here at one point, the wife and the husband. And I believe they're still guarding history.
The information changes Lee and Jennifer's opinion of the haunting, and they decide to try to live with the spirits.
I believe Lee refused to cleanse the house because of the history. It is very possible to coexist with spirits. Respect them, they'll respect you back, and then just treat them like regular people.
After all this has happened, for me, I feel comfortable in the house again. We've kind of taken it back, but I know that we're not alone.
Spirits who are in pain, haven't found peace, or are doomed can sometimes be stuck in a permanent limbo, and their cries of anguish can end up terrifying the living.
Paranormal Survivor, Wandering Spirits, take 1. Mark?
I broke up with a girlfriend of 7 years. It was a low point in my life.
James was in a vulnerable place after the breakup, and that vulnerability opened a door to the spirit world.
I was just on my couch, and all of a sudden, I'm thinking I'm hearing something. It started real slow. Sounds like locusts. A singular hum of thousands of them at one pitch, constantly. I looked around the house, I checked every room, I checked every space. I thought maybe, mice in the walls. I searched everywhere. I found nothing. Nothing at all. It's very deafening. I am totally thinking there's something wrong with me. I've got a brain tumor. No explanation. Nothing for the noises.
Shut up!
In Ohio, homeowner James Creechbaum was experiencing a mysterious and deafening sound inside his home.
Shut up! Shut up! Stop!
Sound of those locusts, it was like 24/7. So you couldn't sleep. I really thought I'm losing my mind. I really thought I was losing my mind. I really felt sick, like flu-like symptoms, but the thing was I didn't have the flu. My whole body just felt sick. Like like a poison had gotten into my body. The headaches would start in about the base of my neck, and they would just radiate up through my head, pretty much like that noise. It would start like at the middle of the back of my neck and radiate up and outward. And they were just nonstop. I was just another thing adding on, stacking on top of misery.
And the strange activity only got worse.
It got to a point where I would see flashes and streaks and look like spirits running around my house. I could see them. They'd be real fast and like shadow looking. It was very strange because I'm thinking, you know, I'm not seeing this. I'm sleep deprived. I'm hallucinating. Or my mind's playing tricks with me. I would hear simultaneous noises from different parts of the house. I would hear something from my living room, sometimes from my bathroom, something from my kitchen at the same time. I could hear the kitchen cover open and shut. So I kind of smart aleckly said, you know what, if you're gonna open the cabinet, shut them.
If you're gonna open the cabinet, shut them.
I got to a point where I was frightened. I had my anxiety level was through the roof. It was through the roof.
After weeks of unrelenting activity, James was physically and mentally drained.
I was trying to go to sleep, trying to get myself in relaxed mode, which I could not relax because of, you know, days of not being able to sleep, exhaustion.
Help us. Where are we? Help us. Where are we?
And I've got my eyes shut, I'm almost asleep, and I can feel what feels like 2 or 3 people like doing this, trying to wake me up, trying to get my eyes open, shake me.
Please, help us.
Where are we?
I open my eyes and I could try to adjust my eyes. I'm really sleep deprived, and I'm thinking I'm not seeing this because they look like 2 ladies and a couple guys. They look like late teenagers, early 20s.
Help us.
Please, help us.
Where are we? Help us.
And they were trying to tell me something.
Where are we?
Please, help us.
Sometimes spirits are very confused. They may have left without understanding why. They may have unfinished business, or perhaps they're confused and don't know how to move on. And in that particular moment, they can reach out to the living to ask for help.
Please, help us.
In my mind, I was getting things like, help us, we need help, can you help us, where are we at?
Where are we? Help us.
Very scary. I was very scared, thinking there's something wrong with me. Maybe I'm gonna die.
Leave me alone!
After enduring months of weird sounds and troubling shadows in his home, James Creechbaum had been pushed to the breaking point. But when he was confronted by 4 undead spirits, it became too much to bear.
Leave me alone! For the love of God, leave me alone and let me sleep!
I got so frustrated, I yelled. I said, look, leave me alone. For the love of God, let me sleep. Leave me alone. Please.
Just go away! For the love of God, leave me alone and let me sleep!
But they just evaporated right in front of me. It's very scary. It's like knowing you're going to die and no way to stop it. It's a very empty feeling. It's doom, hopelessness.
At the edge of sanity, James reached out for help.
Tanya, she was my friend, and she was a psychic medium, and I knew she knew a lot about those stuff. So I called her and asked her, and I told her everything that was going on.
Using her psychic abilities, Tanya could trace James's haunting back to the split with his girlfriend.
The breakup made me kind of vulnerable in a way. I was kind of depressed. So it opened me up to spirits.
With James's defenses down, a paranormal entity pounced.
Are you all right?
I can feel the spirits.
Tanya told me the spirits were just drawn to me because I was going through a rough time in my life. They were just feeding off my depression and making me more depressed. It was like a vicious circle. She thought someone were looking to cross over, or they were drawn to me, just all different reasons, whole different reasons. Some of them wanted to tell me messages, some of them wanted to tell messages to their loved ones, some of them wanted to cross over or help crossing over. But I didn't know all this, you know, and they were desperate to get my attention because I was putting off a big light to them, so to speak.
We need to perform a crossover ceremony.
Tanya said she would help me with this crossover ceremony to help me cross over this spirit that was attached to me.
Isn't that dangerous?
I asked her, I said, isn't that a dangerous thing? She goes, it is, but you know what? You've got nothing left to lose. Sometimes you've got to take a risk for big things to do big things. And I had nothing left to lose, so let's go for it. I'm ready. When she told me that, I was like, there's hope. There's hope. There's real hope.
Tanya helped James prepare for the crossing over ceremony.
Are you ready?
When you have a crossing over ceremony that involves 2 mirrors that are facing one another with a candle in the middle, that's an incredibly powerful crossing over ceremony. The 2 mirrors that are facing one another, what they do is they create a vortex of energy. You invite whatever it is in your environment to cross over through the mirror into another level of existence.
Send your holy warriors to take this evil spirit from me, from my home, and bring it to the light.
Bring any spirits who wish to cross. Send your holy warriors.
I did include in prayer not just the attachment spirit, but any other spirits that you need. This is your chance to cross over. When the bad spirit attachment that was on me, when it left, it literally felt like the hand of God went in my spine, around my tailbone, went like this, and ripped it out. One motion.
To cross. Bring any spirits who wish to cross.
It was amazing. Totally amazing.
Instantly, I felt better. Honest to God, the house was just lighter. I mean, it just was. It felt lighter. It felt better. I felt better. And it was incredible. It was no words to describe it. I literally, I slept for a day, almost a whole day after that. Was just totally wiped out. And it was amazing. Like, I woke up and I was just felt so great, mentally and physically.
My life flashed before my eyes.
Get out! It was so frightening.
You are about to see real people
I felt like I was going to die.
reliving horrifying paranormal encounters for the first time.
I knew that I was in danger.
When shadowy spirits torment the living.
I saw a large shadow figure.
I just remember waking up to this pain, and the pain was just ramping up.
I had no hope.
I buried this for nearly 30 years.
Be prepared to be afraid.
Paranormal Survivor, House of Terror, take 1. Mark.
I moved into the house with my fiance Drew and our 5-month-old baby Ellery, October of 2017. It's a 2-story, 3 including the attic.
Hi, honey. Hey. How's it coming along?
It just felt like a place that you could call home.
I think she might need a nap, but
Soon after moving in, Blake found something the previous owners had left behind.
We were taking stuff upstairs, and there was a wedding dress sitting right there. And it was up on a hanger. The veil and everything was just up there. It had like a yellowish tint to it, so you could tell that it had been an older dress. It looked like the dress was from the 1900s. The dress made me feel like it was not supposed to be there. Kind of made me uneasy of why somebody would leave something that important behind. It kind of gave me a creepy vibe.
Though concerned, Blake could not bring himself to get rid of the dress.
I decided to keep it because it has a story of its own. And my first question to myself is, why would it still be here? Why would you leave something that meant so much to you?
That wasn't the only strange thing about Blake and Drew's new home.
My buddy Josh came over, and me and my fiance and him were just hanging out, having a good time. Drew put our daughter to the bed.
I just put the blanket over Al.
We all of a sudden heard a scream from my daughter Ellery upstairs, and it wasn't like one that you'd hear every day. You knew something was wrong. We have never heard that type of scream from her prior to that night.
I put Ellery down for bed and she was facing that way, and then I had the blanket on top of her.
Her blanket was actually laying on the side of the crib. The blanket was folded.
The blanket that she was actually laying on was draped over the side of the crib. So when that happened, we knew that something was wrong.
Elle would not have been able to lay the blanket over the crib. She was at the time only 4 or 5 months old. I was panicked. I saw that and I was like, it was not me who was in here, who was around my child, what's going on, which is when I picked her up and I left.
My buddy Josh and I checked all the bedrooms.
Yeah, you go that one over.
And when we realized that there was nobody there, we started asking questions of what could be doing this. When Josh and I got back in the room, we felt uneasy. Our stomachs started to ache. I immediately started getting a headache. He felt drowsy.
Fearful something paranormal may be involved, Josh began to say a prayer.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
When Josh started saying the prayers, I got an eerie feeling that came across me, a very sudden feeling, and it made me very angry.
Yo, man, you all right?
He said that when he looked up at me, my eyes were black. I could feel myself being consumed. It was like a dark feeling and pressure that comes across you.
What's wrong?
It took me over. I couldn't move.
Snap out of it, man.
I could still hear everything, but I could not speak.
Josh was kind of in like a panic. He was yelling at him, hey, snap out of it. Come on, Blake, what's wrong?
I looked really, really mad.
Bro.
It did scare me to hear that. That something is that powerful that could overtake you.
Suddenly, whatever had taken over Blake let go.
I have no idea what just happened.
Drew and I were very worried for Ellery's safety. If it could do that to me, what could it do to an innocent child? After that night, we decided to move her into our bedroom.
That didn't stop the troubling activity.
We've heard creaking in there as somebody's walking around. As if you're just walking in a room, walking around. I heard banging on her crib, and I just heard her crib rattling. That kind of spooked me. I saw a fairly large shadow figure standing beside my daughter's crib. All you saw was just a black, hazy figure. It was probably 6 foot. Is that what was messing with my daughter Ellery that night? Maybe that figure's the one that woke her up and spooked her. Went back and it was gone.
A shadow figure is usually an interdimensional being. They can morph into different shapes and sizes, and sometimes it can be a malevolent spirit trying to intimidate you. They're trying to make you fearful. They are going to use the energy of the home to manifest.
I was very terrified for my family's safety when all this was happening.
Blake was on edge, fearful of what could happen next.
We were just hanging out, and we immediately started hearing growling coming from the air vents. So me and my buddy Josh went to investigate. Started getting eerie feelings, asking each other what we're doing. And then we saw a very dark creature staring right back at us.
Blake Conyu had found what he felt was the perfect home for his family. But not long after moving in, he was confronted by a demonic spirit.
The growling was coming from the basement. So me and Josh went to investigate. We saw a very dark creature staring right back at us. It had red eyes. It was very dark, very tall. It had horns. It was like a leathery, scaly type. It was looking directly at us. It just took off. It was very scary. Josh and I immediately looked at each other and said, this is a more serious thing than we thought.
I was terrified. It's just very scary to know that he's seeing things and you're just like, what do I do? How do I handle this?
This very much so was my breaking point. I figured when we called John Hines in that he would possibly be able to give us the answers and the help that we needed to figure out what was going on.
When I got the phone call from Blake, what I heard was what sounded like a nightmare. He was pretty scared. When Blake told me about the bridal dress, I wanted to take a look at that as soon as possible, because old things like that, this was a really old wedding dress, a lot of times there can be something attached to it.
Pass me the thermal scanner.
We were aiming a remote thermometer at the dress. At one point, we asked if it's in your power to do it, could you raise the temperature in this room 10 degrees? The dress warmed up, and it warmed up 10 degrees. Seeing the temperature change, especially after we asked if an entity could do that, tells me we were dealing with an intelligent entity of some kind.
As he continued the investigation, John and his assistant sensed a demonic presence in the basement.
Once we went into the basement, then things did start to feel heavy and definitely oppressive. It almost felt like you were walking through this curtain of static electricity. And as we were asking questions, trying to find out who's here, can you tell me who you are? Can you tell me what year it is? It was like someone had come up behind me and just smacked my elbow. I was very surprised to look and see there was absolutely nothing behind me. Whatever it was that hit me definitely felt aggressive. It wasn't just a tap. What I felt was a full-on hit.
Let's get out of here.
And I think what was going on was whatever was down there was wanting to try to get us to stop investigating.
But this was nothing compared to what the team would experience next.
When we started the investigation in Ellery's room, what we saw was just astonishing.
There's a little boy in the bed.
What looked like a child in the crib.
You saw the arm immediately stretch all the way out to me. And then the big step came. John asked me to try to get him out. I started talking to him, telling him everything was going to be okay.
And we're watching on the camera as he's reaching in, and then all of a sudden, he pulled and it came out. It wasn't in the crib anymore. Now it was on him.
You could actually feel him attaching himself to you. You could feel the arms going around your neck. You could feel his body or the entity's body on top of yours, kind of like your body's going to sleep very slowly.
We just couldn't believe we were seeing. I mean, I've never seen that before. And at almost that same instant, we saw a dark mass of some kind pass by the camera lens. I started thinking about that dress upstairs because it almost seemed like what I would expect if somebody went up to a baby's bed, picked up the baby, and the mother wasn't happy with it. I wonder if what we were seeing was some kind of a maternal instinct to protect her baby.
It is not uncommon for kind spirits in a home to be protective of the living, especially, let's say, a baby. They would go to great lengths to protect a child from a more malevolent being within the space.
It just makes a lot of sense to me that a mother would have some kind of a tie-in with that wedding dress upstairs.
What's it?
John offered to cleanse the house, but warned them if they got rid of the evil spirit, the good spirit would most likely cross over as well.
What it looks like to me is you have something that's pretty negative down in the basement. You have something up here that almost seems in opposition. It's almost like a mother figure. And his feeling was, well, I don't want to banish it.
We understand that the entity that is in my daughter Ellery's room is there to protect her and not hurt her.
We left it open-ended in case they do need help from us later on.
Much to their relief, the good spirit prevailed, and Drew and Blake have not been revisited by the demonic entity since.
I personally feel now at my house, I feel very welcomed. I don't feel like I'm having a big problem. I feel safer.
Now that we have answers and we know what's going on, things are good. This experience has changed my life. It's made me a stronger person.
The haunting has impacted me and Drew, kind of brought us closer together after it all happened, and it makes us feel a lot safer.
Shadowy entities are often protective of the spaces they inhabit, and when disturbed, they will manifest their anger, tormenting their victims at every turn.
Paranormal Survivor, John's Haunting, take 1. Mark?
We were dating at the time. It was 2 years, and it just didn't make sense paying 2 mortgages, 2 hydro bills, 2 phone bills, all those different things.
Lisa asked John to help renovate her old home.
We started the renovations together.
To work, and I'm gonna get going.
We were going to renovate her home so she could get more money for resale.
John had no idea that the renovations would unleash something beyond his worst nightmares.
The house creeped me out from day one. I always felt like I was being watched in that house. I was constantly looking over my shoulder because I felt like someone was behind me. I got that sensation in spades. And I also eventually, the more I was there, started to see little flashes of black at the peripheral of my vision. I'd see shadows out of the corner of my eye, these shadows that would make you turn your head real quick, like you saw the movement of somebody moving, but then when you look, it'd be gone. It was never a comfortable feeling to be there by my own.
The more John worked on the house, the more intense the strange activity became.
I'm preparing to drywall the walls. Brought in all the tools you'd need, trowels, the screws, screw gun, all that kind of stuff, and measuring tapes, of course. The previous day, put everything in a pile. The measuring tape's gone. Couldn't find it. I remember tearing around the house. And then finally, on the upstairs bedroom, that's empty and no one's been in the house but me the day before. My measuring tape is in the middle of the floor. Every single time I'd show up, what I would call it the tool of the day would be gone. Whatever you were doing, whatever job you were doing, the tools began to disappear.
I couldn't explain it. I just couldn't explain how tools would go missing. I didn't know what to think at that point.
I tried every real-world explanation. I could not find it. I could not find a real-world explanation.
One day, the strange events escalated into something terrifying.
All of a sudden, you can start hearing banging like somebody was slamming doors. And it sounded like somebody was slamming every single door. Closet doors, bathroom doors, bedroom doors, all slamming at the same time. And it was all like bam, 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 just going. I was totally intimidated by it.
Stop it!
John Kewen has been renovating his girlfriend's home, but the construction seems to have set off a chain of unnerving activity.
Stop it! Stop!
I got really mad and I ran up the stairs. That sound went on nonstop, every door. Just like bam, 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 bam. And then just picture someone slamming a door as hard as they can out of anger. That's what it sounded like, and just kept going, would not stop. I said to myself, like, this is ghost, this is otherworldly. And I'm not gonna lie, it scared the hell out of me. How do you explain that? That something could do that, slam 5 doors at the same time, that loud, that long.
Some spirits love to torment the living because it's what they like to do. They like to get attention, and they like to perhaps let the person know that they're entering an environment that belongs to them and not to the living.
I called it a day. I just said, you know what, enough, and locked the house up and left.
Back at his own house, he hoped that his life could get back to normal.
I was over the moon. I was thrilled I didn't have to go back in this house ever again. Without exaggerating, 2 to 3 days after her house was completed, I was sitting in my living room and I literally had said it in my head, like, thank God this is behind me. And within seconds of saying that, I watched this massive shadow man walk out of the wall by my TV, walk into the middle of my living room. It looked like a man, but he was all black and he was huge. This is a 7-foot-plus man who's in the 350 to 400 pound range. And it would be like a massive, massive man if this was a man. And when it first walked in, it was intimidating as hell. Every step that it took, you could hear my hardwood floors creaking. When it walked by light, it blocked the light. You couldn't look through it. And it turned and faced me in the middle of my room. This thing is just completely, totally black. And it just stood there and it stared at me for 20 seconds at least. And I want to leave the room, but where it's standing is the exit. I was not thinking. I was in panic. I remember I was actually afraid to run to the stairs. I didn't understand how this thing that is not real could block the light in my room. And then it just turned and walked into a wall and was gone. I felt fear. I don't think I slept at all that night.
He seemed agitated. He seemed really upset by this. He didn't know how to explain it or what it was.
I really thought when I finished that house, all of this crazy stuff that I can't explain would go away. I was really concerned to say anything, especially to Lisa. We have a new relationship. She's taken a big leap and she's moved into my home, and now her home is not accessible to her anymore. What's she gonna say? It was like my own personal hell.
The shadow figure began tormenting John regularly. Then, it turned violent.
So I was seeing this shadow person in the house, and I remember I opened the fridge door and I leaned to look in. And then I got punched hard in my back. Hard enough that like pushed my head into the fridge. And I spun around, thinking I got some guy in my house. There's nothing there. And there's no way that somebody could have come in, done it, and left. And I knew it was paranormal. To have marks on your body and how scary that is to you, That's stuff that's out of like horror movies, right? And all of a sudden now I feel like I'm in my own personal horror movie. And it was a horrible feeling. It was terrifying.
An entity would have to be incredibly strong and have a really forceful energy in order to physically hurt someone, to punch them, or to cause them physical harm. If a person experiences physical harm from an entity, then they really do need to be on their guard. They really need to be very aware that something is going on and need to protect themselves.
I was concerned for his safety. It was happening to him. And, you know, I don't want to see him hurt or anything. It wasn't happening to me, it was happening to him.
The paranormal activity took a toll on John.
Then I'm not sleeping. I'm going to bed at crazy times because I didn't want to go to bed or I was afraid to go to bed. I was losing so much sleep. One night, I'm sleeping on my back, and all of a sudden, I just remember waking up to just pain. And my foot's in the air, and my first reaction is to pull it back, and I can't. Try to pull it down, I can't.
Ever since he renovated his girlfriend's house, John Kewen had been plagued by a shadowy entity. Now, it had turned violent.
And then I started to scream because it started to hurt. It's just like somebody took the end of your foot and just began to squeeze all your toes. And the pain was just ramping up. And I was screaming. I'm screaming, stop, stop, stop.
That was the night that he woke up screaming, just stop, stop, stop. I guess that must have woke me up, and I said, what? And he grabbed his leg, and he was in a lot of pain.
The minute Lisa talked, just boom, it stopped, let go of my foot.
Then I thought, something's very strange. Now I just don't know what to do. I believed what he said.
Sometimes violence will escalate with an entity because they're not getting the desired effect. They're not receiving the attention that they want, so they will lash out in many different ways, and sometimes in violent ways, more violent ways, in order to elicit a response from a living being.
It's okay.
My breaking point was when my foot was in the air because I felt totally helpless. That was frustrating. That made me angry as could be. And that's when I said, I got to find a way to make this stop.
Brought to his limit, John turned to a paranormal investigator, Dan Hammond, for help.
My first take on what was haunting John was definitely a strong spirit. I believe that this was someone that had a connection to Lisa's home that they were renovating. And once he started to renovate the home, he upset the spirit and he took his frustration out on John.
When the very first time Dan came to my house, he said, wow, this place feels heavy. He described it as he feels like you're walking in water. It felt really heavy. So he wanted to capture evidence. So he did some electronic voice recordings, trying to capture what they call EVPs, electronic voice phenomenon.
The reason why a spirit would attack somebody is if you're a bully in life and you like to inflict torment and pain on someone when you're living, then why would anything change when you're dead? I just think he was a bully, arrogant, ignorant, and he took pleasure in tormenting poor John. When we asked the spirit if he knew John.
Do you know this man beside me? Do you know John?
And we heard a voice reply, yes.
The spirits that were there, or the spirit that was there, the one thing they said that stands out to me to this day was Dan said, why are you bothering John?
Why are you bothering John?
And the response came back, kill him. The EVPs that we heard were quite creepy, quite chilling.
Give me the sage.
So John and I finally took it into our own hands to get rid of the spirit.
And the way we cleansed the house, we just went all through it with sage, and we were just demanding that whatever is here is not welcome, and you are to move on.
Spirits, you are not welcome. We demand that you leave this house.
We demand you leave this house. Spirits, you are not welcome. We demand you leave this house.
After we saged the home, the atmosphere was definitely lighter. Felt a lot better inside the home. You can actually feel the air change. It gets thinner. So we definitely were successful.
Feels lighter.
For the first time in a long time, it was just completely loose, and I just felt relaxed. And I knew that we had done something that is making a difference. House feels great. Everything's great. I'm doing really good. This experience, without a doubt, changed my life.
Get cozy.
In the beginning, it changed it for the worst. And now, having been through it, I feel like I can deal with a lot more than I ever could before. I'm a lot more resilient than I was before.
Just to have all those answers, it made me feel more relieved that he was content and happy.
My eyes are open now.
Shadowy figures don't like to be provoked or disrespected, and when they are, these beings will torment the living, even at the expense of the innocent.
Paranormal Survivor, Deanna's Terror, take 1, Mark.
Me and Doug moved into the house in 2015. I wanted a house really bad. I had never had one, and I'd always been in an apartment. I had a yard, a fenced-in yard that we fixed up. I was excited about the house.
Almost immediately after moving in, Deanna began to feel something was wrong.
When we first moved in, I felt very ill, kind of flu-like, headache, foggy, tired. I thought it was a cold, so I took cold medicine. Doug had fallen asleep earlier than I was having an uneasy feeling. I wasn't comfortable. I tossed, I turned, but then when I opened my eyes, that's when the figures were around the bed. They were black figures. They had like hoods. They all had their arms outspread towards me. Like they were just like all coming in towards me, pointing at me. I even tried to wake up Doug a couple times, and for some reason he wouldn't wake up. I was flipping out.
Please leave me
I believe I even cried.
Please go away!
I prayed to God, and I literally asked him to leave. Please leave me alone. Please go away. So I hid under the blankets, but I was that scared.
Eventually, the spirits vanished, leaving Deanna shaken.
I tried to brush it off. I tried to blame it on the cold medicine. I was hallucinating. You know, the cold medicine had a bad reaction.
Deanna would soon learn that medication had nothing to do with what she was experiencing, as the frightening activity in the home escalated.
I started hearing footsteps up and down the steps, walking upstairs. I'd hear them upstairs. I'd hear them walking up and down the steps. The footsteps were loud and clear. You could hear the floor creak, 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 creak. and I would see dark figures.
In Ohio, homeowner Deanna Dunkel was being tormented by dark spirits.
I would see dark figures in the side of my eye and my peripheral vision. I would see them come out of a room and go to another room. I'd see them on the landing. It happened every day, all day throughout the day, the night. It was just a regular occurrence. When I finally told Doug and talked to him about it, he thought I was loony. He thought it was loony. And to this day, I haven't told many people at all. At all.
Despite dismissing Deanna, Doug had his own issues with the spirits.
Deanna, have you seen my hammer?
No. He had a workbench and a tool shop in the basement. And I didn't go in the basement because I have allergies. So that was his little man cave.
Well, where did it disappear to?
His tools were coming up missing. And he would come and yell at me and we would argue.
What?
It would move his tools. We'd find them upstairs.
What's this doing here?
Or we'd never find them. But it caused us to argue and fight. He and Doug had had a fairly good relationship till then. He really thought that I had taken him and that it was me. And he started taking his anger out on me.
When spirits remove or move tools around or other objects, could be because it's their space and they don't want it there, or it could be that they're trying to cause conflict within the home, creating that negative energy.
Things just got really, really bad really quick.
If Doug still doubted the paranormal activity, his opinion was about to be changed in dramatic fashion.
I think he tried to brush it off, but he knew something was going on. He knew that something wasn't right. More tools went missing.
How can that be?
After a while, he was frustrated. He didn't like it. And as he would walk through the dining room, the pictures would come off the wall, fly out right behind him and land on the floor. Doug, when something would happen to him especially, he would curse them out.
You think you can intimidate me?
He would yell and scream at them, call them names. He'd cuss them out.
You don't scare
And I kept trying to tell him that he's making them mad. You know, they're gonna continue to take it out on you.
It is never a good idea to be aggressive or start swearing at spirits. Essentially, all you are doing is being confrontational. And at that point, you're just making it angrier and you're making it a lot harder on yourself.
I was always concerned after he yelled and sweared at them because I thought he was making them more angry and I thought that things would get worse or they would do something more harmful, either to him or I.
Doug had antagonized the spirits, but it was Deanna who would pay the price.
I was sitting there watching TV and I felt something burning across my side and lifted my shirt and there were a couple scratches. The scratches were long in length, 4 or 5 inches maybe, just a red line that had welted up, almost from a fingernail or something. I didn't have anything that would scratch me, and there's no reason why they should have been there. I hadn't moved, I hadn't gotten up.
Leave me alone! Please! 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 Leave me alone!
I felt like I really needed to get some help or to tell somebody what's going on. I had no hope.
Deanna called in paranormal investigator Sean Gilmore and his team.
When I first spoke with Deanna, I felt a lot of despair coming from her. I felt a lot of anxiety coming from her. And also I felt hopelessness.
They've been there, and they've been there.
And she even expressed that she felt helpless and she felt lost.
I was hoping that they would tell me I'm not crazy. I was hoping that they would tell me that they could help me.
As I walked through the house, I felt a lot of frustration. I felt a lot of anger coming through the walls. As an empath, I don't see spirit, I only feel it. I did not feel welcome in there. I felt like that was someone else's space. We decided to start our investigation with an EVP session in the bedroom because that's where Deanna had a very profound experience. And we were asking questions like, are you the spirits that surrounded her? Are you angry with her? Are you upset with Deanna?
Are you upset with Deanna?
And that's when we captured an EVP that said, no. That confirmed to me that the spirits in the home weren't upset with Deanna.
Sean and his partner Eric continued their investigation in the basement.
We were asking questions about the tools being moved. And we also asked if they were upset with Doug.
Does he upset you?
And that's when Eric was struck.
After months of being terrorized by dark entities, Deanna Dunkel called in paranormal investigator Sean Gilmore and his team. But now, they've become targets themselves.
You all right? What the hell was that?
He was just very shocked over this experience that he had.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we should head upstairs.
Yeah.
Sensing the spirits were angry at Doug's antagonism, Sean and Eric tried to calm the situation.
When you have a spirit in your home, you have to remember, that's their home. You're in their space just as much as they're in yours. So when you're disrespecting a spirit or upsetting a spirit, you are asking for a reaction. That's why it's so important when you are interacting with spirit that you are respectful. You don't want that negative attachment following you around. I apologized for Doug's actions.
Spirits, please hear our apology for the insult rained upon you.
I apologized for the hurtful things that he would say to the spirit.
Please accept this apology.
We really wanted to let spirit know that Deanna didn't mean any harm.
Please.
We really just wanted to press the fact that Deanna isn't the one who was being disrespectful and wished harm upon anyone. Our conclusion is that there were spirits that lived in the home before Deanna and Doug. I believe that these hooded figures was a way of the spirits trying to scare Deanna because the house was empty for so long before they moved in. Now all of a sudden, there's strangers in their home. They weren't happy that they were there.
The investigation brought me a lot of comfort. It was just nice having answers, some kind of clue, you know, rather than always thinking it's in my head. It was a relief.
Although the spirits had become quiet, Doug and Deanna's relationship was beyond repair.
There had been so much damage to the relationship and all the bad memories and stuff that me and Doug, we separated and went our separate ways. The paranormal activity stopped. I got healthy. I got a job. I got out of the house. I made friends. I now have a very fulfilling life.
After the investigation, I reached out to Deanna. I wanted to see how she was doing. And she seemed to be doing a lot better. I could tell there was a pep in her step when I was talking to her. There was more energy in her voice.
I believe if they had not have come, I may not have a life or the life I have now.